Have you ever wondered how the British Empire, once the most powerful in the world, came to an end? Imagine a time when the sun never set on the British Empire, its dominion reaching far and wide, from the Americas to Africa, Asia to Australia. At its zenith, it was the largest empire in history, boasting a quarter of the world's land area and population. But as the saying goes, all good things must come to an end, and so it was with the British Empire. Its decline wasn't a sudden collapse but rather a gradual process, driven by a multitude of factors. Economic strain, nationalist movements in its colonies and changing global dynamics all played their parts. The once mighty empire didn't just vanish overnight. It was a slow, complex and often painful process that spanned several decades. So what were the key events that led to the decline of the British Empire? Let's delve into the past to find out. The end of World War II marked the beginning of a new era, an era where the British Empire would start to lose its grip on its colonies. The war had left Britain economically strained, its treasury nearly depleted from the monumental war effort. Meanwhile, a wave of nationalism was sweeping through the colonies, the people yearning for self-governance and freedom from colonial rule. India, the jewel in the crown of the British Empire, was on the forefront of this movement. The Indian National Congress, with leaders like Mahatma Gandhi and Jawaharlal Nehru, spearheaded a non-violent resistance movement against British rule. After a long, arduous struggle, India finally achieved independence in August 1947. This event was a watershed moment not just for India but for the British Empire as well. With India's independence, the first significant crack in the British Empire had appeared. The Suez Crisis of 1956 was a glaring spotlight on Britain's diminishing power. This crisis, which saw Britain, France and Israel in a failed attempt to control the Suez Canal, was a stark revelation of Britain's dwindling global influence. International pressure, particularly from the United States and the United Nations, forced the British to withdraw, leaving them humiliated on the world stage. But the Suez Crisis was just one episode in a larger narrative. Across Africa and Asia, winds of change were blowing. Colonies once under the firm grip of the British Empire were now clamoring for independence. Nationalist movements were gaining strength, fueled by the desire for self-rule and the dreams of nationhood. From the Gold Coast of Africa, which would become Ghana, to the bustling streets of Singapore, the call for decolonization echoed loud and clear. As decolonization gained momentum, the British Empire was losing ground rapidly. The cost of 2 world wars and maintaining an empire had taken a toll on Britain. The once mighty nation found itself grappling with economic decline in the mid-20th century. The strain of conflicts and the financial burden of sustaining overseas territories had drained Britain's resources. Their focus now had to shift to rebuilding their domestic economy. The time of empires was ending and an era of self-determination was dawning. As a result, the British Empire began to transform. It morphed into what we now know as the Commonwealth of Nations. This wasn't an abrupt change but rather a gradual transition that allowed former colonies to maintain ties with Britain while gaining independence. The Commonwealth was a unique entity, a free association of independent nations, acknowledging the British monarch as the symbolic head. It was a diplomatic balancing act of sorts, allowing Britain to uphold some semblance of its former glory, while adjusting to a new world order. The metamorphosis of the empire into the Commonwealth marked a significant shift in Britain's global role. The handover of Hong Kong to China in 1997 was more than just a political event. It marked a symbolic end to an era, the final act in the drama of the British Empire. Picture a stage where the British Empire once commanded the spotlight, its influence reaching the far corners of the world. As the 20th century progressed, this powerful entity gradually receded into the shadows, its colonies breaking away one by one. Hong Kong was one of the last significant overseas territories under British control. Its handover to China was not just a political transaction but a poignant moment in history. The British flag was lowered, and the Chinese flag was raised. This moment was a tacit acknowledgement of the shifting global power dynamics. The once mighty empire had been humbled. With the handover of Hong Kong, the sun had finally set on the British Empire. The story of its rise and fall serves as a potent reminder of the transient nature of power.